Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to Hands Down DFS. This is our week 4 Draftkings main slate full breakdown. I'm Ryan. And I'm here with my co-host Scotty. Scotty, how are you?
We had a tough week 3. I started off the show by saying, you know what, the rust is already off. We figured it out early. This is going to be a great year. And then Pride came before the fall. I was looking for a bounce back week this week, realized that is not going to happen. At least I don't know yet, because I just got Subway when chicken tender subs were on sale at Publix. So
Why?
already making questionable decisions. I just forgot.
Yeah.
I'm already making questionable decisions. Now you're about to listen to me give you picks on how you should spend your money. So
You know what?
we'll see, though.
You went for the leverage play, the low ownership play. You were going for the GPP win. I
Hey,
respect that.
quick line. Nobody in line. And everybody was at Publix, but should have saw that maybe as a red flag. But got in, got out, got my Subway sub. Was going to they have a new caramel apple cookie. They were out of it, so didn't even get to try that. So,
Ow.
yeah. So, you know what? Maybe I'm just using all of my luck on DFS this week because it just seems to be running out in other places. But that's okay. That is okay. It's worth it.
I mean, that's where the luck needs to be focused in. So,
yes, I will. Sure, we'll go with that. But let's
all
get
right,
into
then
the
let's talk actual football. Starting off with our quarterbacks, these top two guys, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. It's kind of a tale of two different game scripts. You've got Patrick Mahomes in what should be a very high-scoring game, but against a Philly team that, except for last week, granted that was a lot of because of turnovers, but except for last week, has had a pretty good defense. And then you got Josh Allen going against Houston that doesn't have much of a defense. About the same price. Who, if either of these guys, are you leaning?
I'm probably leaning neither of them, but I'd probably have to go Josh Allen if I were to go one. I mean, the story about Josh Allen always is that you have the high floor of the rushing yards. He hasn't necessarily been rushing too much this year. He did get the one touchdown in his last game, which helps, and why he was QB1 last week. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to project him to replicate that performance, but I think we saw last week that the Bills are able to, even in a blowout, sorry about that, are able to put up big points and Josh Allen to have a lot of numbers that way. So I really do like Josh Allen this week if we were to kind of pick those two, just because I know that even in a blowout, we should be getting a lot of points out of Allen. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. My first look video I did, I kind of had the same question, for Josh Allen, like, are we going to get the same amount of points that we did last week against Houston? And I was thinking probably not worth paying up $8,000, but then I figured, hey, like Buffalo after the first quarter was up like 3 touchdowns the entire game, and he was put up 40 points. So he definitely can do it again at 8,000, but when you're looking to probably get 4x value from a quarterback and you need him to get 32 points, I think he's a safe floor at 25. But if you want to take down a GPP, you're looking for 5x value. So, or maybe not 5, but 4.5 or so. So you're really looking for him to replicate his performance, like you said. And I don't know, just having 2 big weeks like that against bad defenses is going to be tough to do.
Yeah. And really, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, the Chiefs and the Eagles, they have a 54.5 point total on their over-under, compared to the Bills and the Texans having a 47 point over-under. So you would think you would kind of naturally lean towards the Chiefs. However, the implied point totals, the Bills are projected to have 31.75 points, where the Chiefs are only supposed to have 30.75. So there is an extra point that the Bills offense is supposed to get, even though the point total overall is going to be lesser. So I think you might be able to get some people moving over to Mahomes or some of these other games that we'll probably be talking about, as we have a whole bundle of games that are going to be over the 50 point over under. So I think Josh Allen is somebody who actually could slip through the cracks, but again, probably going to stay away because there is cheaper value elsewhere.
Yeah. And you talked about these high scoring games, and I think there's a group of 3 quarterbacks from 71 to 6,900 that are in those games. Obviously, we talked about the Kansas City Eagles game already, But Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Jalen Hurts, all projected to be in very high-scoring games. Russell Wilson, has for the past couple of years been that like first half MVP.
Every year. How has this guy not won the MVP yet? And then he plays the second half of the season.
Exactly. It's kind of same thing as started this season through weeks 1 and 2. He tailed off a bit last game, but I think a lot of people are going to fall trap to this game because they see San Francisco in that 30th, defense rank. But I don't think they really are 30th. I mean, I think they took their foot off the gas week 1 against Detroit. Jalen Hurts kind of rushed all over them in week 2, which Russell Wilson can't do. And Rodgers, he didn't have that great of a game last week. So I think this is they're not a bad defense, they're not a good defense, it's just a very mediocre defense, but I feel like Wilson's going to carry a lot of ownership in this range. So I kind of like the two guys below him a little bit better. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you on staying away from Wilson. I think I'll probably, out of those three guys, lean more towards Stafford. I'm going to pull up Jalen Hurts, though, because, I mean, anybody who watched that game on, Monday night against the Cowboys, the Cowboys' defense actually looked good, which is saying something. And Jalen Hurts was just really, I mean, he had that first interception going to Rager where he just underthrew him, and we were like, what the heck are you doing? Yeah. And he had this terrible game, but then he still gets 25.5 fantasy points. He gets a couple touchdowns late. He gets the rushing yards. He gets, he was able to throw the ball 40 times, basically. And so I definitely like that, where Jalen Hurts, I don't know how much longer he's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. Maybe we see some Gardner Minshew action, but until then, even then when he's playing bad, he's still very viable in the fantasy world. So I like that.
Yeah, and I agree. I really like Jalen Hurts also. Just like you said, he had a very bad game last week, and he still put up 25 points. And now he's, we talked about this Kansas City game, is going to have 54-point total. He should be putting up a lot of points. I think he's a very good cash play. I think we'll have to wait and see how ownership falls towards him. And, if it's low, I think he's going to be a big GPP play. I don't think it will be low. I think it'll be rather high. So I might stick more towards cash, but I definitely think he's probably going to be a top 5 scoring quarterback this week, I think. So got to have him in your player pool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and what have we seen Kansas City be able to do on defense so far? I mean, a whole lot of nothing. And so that's part of the reason why they're 1-2, which is unbelievable to say that the Steelers and the Chiefs have the same record, but we're there. And so, I think
so do the Dolphins.
Yeah, look at that. The 3 teams that are all going to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC are the Dolphins, Chiefs, and the Steelers.
Exactly.
But no. So I definitely like Jalen Hurts there. Moving down, though, a game that I really like, and I think you're going to see two sides of the offenses on both sides where there's going to be some points scored. It looks like the total is going to be 52 is where the line's going to land, with the Cowboys favored by 4.5 points. Sam Darnold and Dak Prescott, 700-point difference. I think Sam Darnold projected to play from behind a little bit more. Doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. He's going to have to air it out more. I'm kind of leaning Sam Darnold. Am I crazy for that?
No, I agree. I like Sam Darnold this week, and I think a lot of other people do. Just reading some other, just browsing through Twitter, reading some forums, just reading some articles. I think Sam Darnold's a guy that's going to be talked about a lot this week, and I think for good reason. You mentioned Dallas looked good defensively, but it was the first time in a while that they have done that. So, McCaffrey obviously has been Carolina's kind of go-to guy, obviously on the ground, but also in the air. He's been that safety net. But even since Hubbard's came in, he got 5 targets. So I think he's still going to be utilized just as much. No, okay. I won't go and say he'll be utilized just as much as McCaffrey, but he definitely will be utilized in the offense in the passing game. He'll be there for Darnold. And I think, I think Sam Darnold can definitely put up points. And when you're talking 6,000, like we said, a guy that you're probably going to want to get 4x value from your quarterback, that's 24 fantasy points. I mean, look what he's averaging this season, 24 fantasy points. So I think he's a very good play this week also.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at it, we're going to move over to Dak Prescott's numbers here. If if at the beginning of the season, going into week 4, I told you that Sam Darnold had 3 more rushing touchdowns than Dak Prescott, you would have looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
We are, where Sam Darnold is the rushing threat and Dak Prescott isn't for the touchdowns. And so, I mean, Dak Prescott did have the one in the Monday night game that should have been called a touchdown, where he was clearly over the line, and they reviewed it and still somehow didn't give it to him. But still, Sam Darnold has the rushing upside that Dak Prescott wishes that he had.
Another couple guys that I want to bring up for quarterbacks before we move on to running backs were a couple guys that you mentioned in your sneaky stacks. If you haven't already watched that, go check it out on our channel. Scotty kind of breaks down some of the lesser owned stacks, but Matt Ryan, someone I kind of really like this week for how cheap he is.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan is definitely a guy who has looked bad this year, just to kind of put it gently. But I don't think this Washington defense is very good.
No, that's exactly why I like him.
Yeah, that's kind of, like I said in my video that we posted earlier this week, I think there's 2 narratives going around out there. One, that the defense is actually good. The offense has kind of been what's keeping them back. But I think it's really the Washington football team played really bad quarterbacks last year, and were able to take advantage of that. Their linebackers got worse. Their secondary got worse. The defensive line is still pretty solid. So we're not expecting any Mike Davis action going on. But the only thing that scares me about Matt Ryan, and I kind of talked about this, and you could tell from the video, is I don't know who to stack him with. I don't know. Cordell Patterson right now is the number 1 fantasy player on the Falcons.
That's crazy.
Through 3 weeks, going into week 4. So I don't know. Kyle Pitts kind of let us down. Ridley's let us down. Gage just has a weird ankle injury. Zacchaeus, I mean, we can't expect a lot out of Zacchaeus. And so, so I just don't know who to stack him with, but I think this could be a good game for him. But again, he just puts you in a weird spot a little bit.
So I kind of agree with you, and I have this written down in my wide receiver notes, but I do like Ridley a lot this week. So the guy that they have him scheduled to match up against, the cornerback, is Benjamin St. Just. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but
that's a good sign for Calvin Ridley if you don't know the pronunciation.
Exactly. Not only is that a good sign, but out of 32 teams, 3 defensive backs for the 3 wide receivers, out of 96 cornerbacks, Benjamin St. Just, it has been targeted the most as a share of the other team's passes. So he's been 30% of dropbacks teams have targeted this Benjamin St. Just guy. That's who Calvin Ridley scheduled to match up against. I think that's a good sign. Maybe we can finally get some Matt Ryan Calvin Ridley connection going.
There you go. I mean, it has to happen eventually, right?
Right.
So there's no reason why it couldn't happen this game. But yeah, so that's one of the stacks for sure. Another guy that I like that I know I had talked about earlier was Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones kind of let us down last week. I know you said you had a good lineup where you still had him at quarterback, but if you picked anyone else as your quarterback, you probably would have done a lot better and won a lot of money, and we would have posted about it. But New Orleans, the strength of the New Orleans defense is the defensive line and stopping the run, which proves well for Daniel Jones. They have the number 1 defense. A lot of that was because of what they were able to do with the Packers week 1, but I think that's more of a fluke than anything. And so, yeah, I really like Daniel Jones this week. I know a lot of people are probably going to be away from him based off of what he did to them last week. But, yeah, what are your thoughts on him?
I don't think I love him as much as you do. I understand the position because I think he'll probably be one of the lesser owned guys on the slate. And even though he had a bad week that, the hands down DFS lineup was kind of killed by, I think he has a safe floor because he brings that rushing upside. So I think he's definitely playable. I think there's better matchups for him, obviously, but I see the reason someone would want to play him, and it would give you, if you're building 150 lineups or 20, if you have, I don't know, maybe 20% exposure to him, you'll probably triple what the field or what everyone else is on him. So you can definitely get leverage on him, and he definitely has a pretty good ceiling. So I understand the appeal. I probably won't go there this week just because he burned us last week. And the only lineup that, I had a good lineup with him in was because I, ran him naked. I didn't stack him with any other Giants. So, the fact that that game just didn't have very many points didn't kill me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the Sterling Shepard injury doesn't feel nice
Right.
anyway either. So, but yeah, I mean, those were the big names for the quarterbacks that I wanted to hit. Anybody else that you want to touch on?
No, I think we can move on to running backs.
Awesome.
Starting off at the top, Derrick Henry at 8,800. Obviously a big price for him, but he's going against the Jets, and he might be able to put up 30 points in the first half. Problem is that might mean they don't give him the ball in the second half, so I'm a little bit worried about that. And just whenever teams play against the Jets, they just seem to be ugly games. We're just slow and grindy, and no one on either team has very many fantasy points. So I just don't know what to do about Henry. I really want him to touch the ball 40 times, but I just don't think we can expect that against the Jets. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Jets defense this year, I mean, they have kind of like a weird, fast defense where, like, if you watch them for like a drive or two, you might actually think they're good. But I definitely think Derrick Henry should be able to expose this Jets defense. Zach Wilson is actually another quarterback that I talk about in my stacks lineup because I think this game has the potential to be a little closer than people are calling it to be. This Titans defense is very bad.
Yeah, but that Zach Wilson guy, he's not too great.
He's bad too. I mean, the fact that he had 6 interceptions in the last 2 weeks is tough. But I'm just saying, there is a reality where the Titans aren't able to put away the Jets because the Jets somehow get the ball moving down the field on the Titans, and we see more Derrick Henry. And like you said, Derrick Henry is somebody who can score 30 points and a half, and even if you get the 30 points, then he'll be coming in at around 3x and 3.5x, and so that's not going to kill your lineups if he does that for you. In best case scenario, he plays the entire game, gets 40 touches, and scores every single point in this game.
Yeah.
So,
we'll also have to monitor AJ Brown and Julio Jones, how they're doing with their injuries, because if they both don't play, Derrick Henry just will get that many more touches. So,
yeah.
Two of my favorite guys on the slate, Nick Chubb at 7,000, and someone that I think will just be a DFS staple this year, and you'll love to hear it. Najee Harris right below him at 6,800. First of all, just talking about Nick Chubb, the Vikings' rush defense is, you see they're 17th, so like they're kind of right in the average, but that's just because they've been so poor against quarterbacks and wide receivers that their rush defense has just been meddling or whatever. But they are allowing the 4th highest yards per carry, and Chubb, if he's going to touch the ball 22 times like he did last week for $7,000, I think that's just going to be way too cheap for the volume he's going to get. And talking Najee Harris, Big Ben's arm looks like it's about to fall off every time he drops back. He just doesn't look like he can throw the ball anymore, and I think Harris is just going to continue to have Christian McCaffrey-like numbers out of the backfield with 19 targets. So what do you think about those two guys?
19 targets is just it's absolutely ridiculous.
Insane.
It's unbelievable. I can't believe that's a real number. Can't believe he caught 14 of them. He had 102 yards. Like, take away the rushing yards because I mean, frankly, there weren't a lot. That's unbelievable. That's a great game. And so, I mean, Green Bay has shown that they're a little bit easier to run on than most teams, but I do think that it is something where Najee Harris should be pretty good. The only issue that I potentially have with Najee Harris this week is the fans and kind of the local media around Pittsburgh have been pretty angry at the Steelers. And this is how much does the outside media and outside opinions have on the game plan? I'm not sure. But they have been pretty critical of the fact of how much we're using Najee Harris in the passing game. And so I don't know if they try to open it out a little bit more, if they try to throw the ball deeper down the field, they try to get the wide receivers more involved. I think we're going to get Juju looks like he's going to be able to play. It looks like we're getting Deontay Johnson back as well. So I don't expect 19 targets out of Najee again, but I definitely could see him getting around that 20 points. Even if, heck, if he gets into the end zone, which is very hard for the Steelers to do nowadays, he could get an extra bump if he doesn't see those insane targets.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. And that something I noted in my video, but Minnesota's got one of the, or rather, Green Bay's got one of the best DBs in the league, and Jair Alexander. So if they shut down whoever he would be matched up against, Claypool, I guess, and either Deontay Johnson or Juju don't play, just one of those two, I still think it's going to be whoever's left of those two, Deontay or Juju, and then Harris as the main target receivers. I don't know, has James Washington done anything this year? It just
really
limits who Big Ben can throw to.
Yeah, for sure. You have Pat Freiermuth and you have Ebron too that Ben likes, but yeah, Najee Harris I don't think is going to be a bad play at all this week. But again, I think I'm just kind of pessimistic on the entire Steelers offense right now based off what I've seen these last couple weeks.
I don't blame you. So, talking about being pessimistic on your team, Jonathan Taylor against Miami is a guy I'm going to have be playing a lot of. There's a reason he started off the season priced at $8,000. It's because he's a darn good running back. He's obviously fallen down to 6,300 and not done much, but I think this is where he gets it going. Miami's just allowed 3 straight weeks of just being dominated on the ground. It was Peyton Barber last week, Damian Harris the week before, Singletary and Moss put up big numbers in week 2. It's just been ugly to watch as a Dolphins fan, but also it makes DFS easy when I can just find who's playing the Dolphins and play their running back. They have lockdown corners. So the way to beat Miami is on the ground or using the slot receiver. So I think Jonathan Taylor can have a big game this week. And like I said, he was priced at $8,000 because last season he was capable of putting up 30 points on 25 carries. So I'm hoping to kind of see that return this week.
Yeah, and I definitely think that Jonathan Taylor is somebody who is pretty tied to the game script. I don't know. How do you feel about Brissett? Because I like Brissett, and last week we even saw that the odds makers like Brissett more than Tua. Do you think this game is going to be one where the Dolphins win it? Because right now you're 1.5 point favorites, so it looks like it's going to be close. But
right,
what do you think the Colts are going to be playing from behind, or how do you think the game script is most likely?
So
to go?
I think it is a 50-50. Like you said, it's a 1.5 spread. It's a close game, but I think out of the games the Colts have had this season, this is the game where they are most likely to play with a lead at some point in the game, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Brissett he's a toss-up. He's the reason the Dolphins drafted Tua was because they needed to take some sort of risk and hopefully get a star quarterback who can just light it up right from the get-go. Tua, verdict still out on him. Maybe your verdict is not, or maybe your verdict is that he's bad. That's fair. He hasn't looked great so far in his career, but I think Brissett's just safe, and it's, I don't know, kind of a player that, as a Dolphins fan, I don't like because he's not going to win you games. He'll just be safe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think that's right. I was saving Jonathan Taylor for when the Colts play the Jaguars, but if you want to do it for the Dolphins, then we can do that then.
Hey, there's nothing stopping you from playing in both weeks.
True.
So down to 6,200, the guy right below two guys below Taylor, I like DeAndre Swift. He's got that questionable tag, limited participant. We'll see if he plays. But if anybody watched Chicago or looked at the stats at Chicago, they had 9 sacks, and that isn't a good number to have by any means. You normally want to have lower of those when your quarterback is being sacked behind the line of scrimmage 9 times. You normally lose a lot of games. So if that happens this week, and the Lions, who have actually been able to surprisingly put up points this season, despite not having a very notable wide receiver core, I think the Lions can actually put up points on Chicago. And I think if they do, it's going to be DeAndre Swift, kind of playing the role we just talked about for Najee Harris, where he gets 10 targets out of the backfield and add in a dozen rushes, and you've got a solid player who can put up 20 points a game. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, according to Fantasy Pros, I'm not sure if this is PPR, half point PPR, but specifically, but DeAndre Swift is the RB3 in all of fantasy football for through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. I really like what I'm seeing out of DeAndre Swift so far. He does lead the league in yards after the catch per reception. I know that's kind of a specific stat to be leading it, but still, I mean, 10.5. It's at 10.5, which is pretty high, and so I definitely like Swift. I think he's been playing like he's a top. I mean, he's been playing like he's a top 3 running back this year, and specifically because we're seeing some other guys get hurt. But I mean, I really do like his upside. I like the receiving upside that he brings. I like that Dan Campbell seems to kind of be figuring out, oh wait, we have a really good running back here. Let's use him more. He had 7 targets last week, which is huge, like you talked about. So I think definitely DeAndre Swift is very much so in play this week.
So the problem that we have is we spend a lot of time talking about all these guys that are over 6,000, and unlike last week where we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 4,800, we don't have like some obvious value running back plays. So is there anyone that's like under 6,000 that we can consider playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think just looking, you have a couple. I mean, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire again, who had a pretty strong week last week. He did have that fumble, so it's kind of tough where if he's going to be in the doghouse or not. But he had 21 points. I mean, you have obviously Chuba Hubbard is going to get a lot of looks at 5,900 now that CMC is gone. You have David Montgomery, who I think has been kind of slept on. He's the 5th in rushing yards this year so far. He's 4th running back because Lamar Jackson's number 4 overall. So he's the 4th running back. As far as rushing yards. A lot of that came early in the season. I know the Bears offense looked really bad on Sunday against the Browns, but I think if you're able to lean more on the running game, maybe you actually use Justin Fields the way he's supposed to and do some RPO action where the defense kind of has to actually guess where the ball is going instead of just dropping him back and asking for him to get teed up on. I think you can see a lot more of David Montgomery. His price has dropped pretty far there. And then I think another spot that I like is what's going on with Gaskins. I like Gaskins, but why is he so cheap?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's being utilized the right way. I feel like he's a good running back, and we've seen a lot of promise from him, but he just, as you can see, first couple of weeks he just didn't get the volume, and then last week when he finally got the volume, he was decent. I mean, five yards a carry is good. You just need, frankly, more carries if you're just going to be averaging 5 and not scoring. He is used out of the backfield a lot, so I think Gaskin is a guy that should be used more, but I just don't see the Dolphins doing that because of that guy right there, Malcolm Brown, who, just is playing that like Latavius Murray kind of role that on the Ravens, where he just kind of comes in and either powers it into the end zone or you come in on 3rd and 2 and get the first down. So I don't know. The upside isn't there for Gaskin right now.
Gotcha. So you're staying away from the Dolphins backfield, even though they do look to be pretty cheap.
They are very cheap. I am this week. I think Indy's got too good of a defense for the Dolphins to do anything against. Once they get a better matchup, if they stay that cheap, I think we can look at Gaskin some. But yeah, gotcha. I mean, I'm not playing him this week.
Gotcha. And the final guy I want to talk about, I mean, we have Cordell Patterson here. He's frustrating, and I refuse to talk about him. But Devin Singletary, we talked about, and I know last week, I mean, he still had 11 carries. He only had 3 points. Not very good, but 11 carries is pretty good. And going against, I mean, Washington's defense, I know we've said that it's not very good. However, we both agree that the defensive line is good. Do we think that this week, going against Houston, who has a lesser defense, do we think that Devin Singletary could get some usage at 4,800?
I definitely think he'll get some usage. I think the problem is going to be, and I really wish this was flipped. Zach Moss is at 5,300, I believe. Maybe 52. I think it's 53.
53. There you go.
53. I really wish those were flipped, because if they were, I would play a lot of Zach Moss, because he had the majority of the carries last week. So that kind of scares me. He also had that touchdown. It just kind of, when you have that running back by committee that Buffalo has, I just don't know who to play. It could be Singletary, it could be Moss. Just don't know.
Is it worth taking a dart on him, or do you think probably just stay away?
On Zach Moss or Singletary?
Just either. Just saying, maybe I'll throw 3 lineups in this.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth taking a chance on one of them. I just don't know which way I lean. Zach Moss has gotten the touchdowns, but Singletary has gotten the volume just throughout the season. So I don't know. It's really just a toss-up.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think I agree there. I mean, I think if you do a bunch of GPP plays and you do like 150 or however many, if you take 5 of Singletary and 5 of Moss, I don't think they'll kill you. The Buffalo Bills should be running the ball a lot. I mean, I know we talked about Josh Allen at the beginning of it, but this doesn't seem like a game that you want to have your superstar quarterback, who's your quarterback of the future, take any unnecessary hits. So I think you definitely let either Singletary or Moss take those hits if possible.
Right. Agreed. Let's move on to wide receivers. I think we covered a good amount of running backs. Yeah, I just want to get this out of the way.
It makes me sad how much it jumped up.
It makes me so sad that he's 7,800, but he is the best fantasy wide receiver, best wide receiver in the league right now, ever. And he's still the only third price. So hey, no, but I think the sad part is he's $7,800, the third highest price. He's come up my math is bad, $2,300 since the start of the season, and I still think I might play him a lot this week because I think he's got the best wide receiver cornerback matchup on the slate. So
I'm just frustrated because I know that each week I'm going to have the same philosophy every time where I'm going to say, you know what? This is Robert Woods this week.
I wanted to bring Robert Woods up next. He's
every
so
week I'm
going to
do it. And I know that the week that I go back to Cooper Kupp and say, nope, okay, I've learned my lesson, it's going to be Robert Woods this week. And
if you play Cooper Kupp 17 weeks this season and never play Robert Woods, it might force Robert Woods to retire. Then we only have one option.
Yeah, maybe we do that. But apparently getting breakfast every day with Matthew Stafford makes a difference. But
I guess so.
Robert Woods, go get some breakfast and then report back once you've done that, and then we'll talk about you more. So
I mean, I want to talk about Robert Woods. He's $5,300, and he's in this high-scoring matchup. Like you said, I feel like he's got to pop eventually. I mean, we saw him last year.
Did we not say that last week? We said that last week.
And he was going against a team that he should have popped against, Tampa Bay, who's just been dismal against the pass. So when is this going to happen?
I don't know. That's what the whole issue here is. We don't know when it's going to happen. And I know that the week that it does happen, I'm going to have Cooper Kupp in my lineup. And it's going to be frustrating. And I'm going to... yeah.
All right. We just won't talk about them.
That was what I was hoping for. That is what I was...
So who else are you paying up for wide receivers?
Well, I'm going to stay away from DeAndre Hopkins. He's questionable, still banged up a little bit. He didn't look like himself this last week. I think maybe he played through pain with that rib injury, so I'm going to stay away. Doesn't get a great matchup with Jalen Ramsey either, so definitely not liking him. Tyreek Hill is somebody who has really had a disappointing last 2 weeks after coming out of the gates as the wide receiver 1. I think maybe he bounces back. I know Philadelphia shows that it's the number 1 defense against wide receivers. I know a lot of that's probably because they were not a lot of people throw against them. But I mean, you go back to the game. Was that San Francisco and Eagles? Was that when Deebo Samuel had the 200 yards?
Yeah, week 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, Philadelphia can give up a bunch of yards to a wide receiver, a quick wide receiver, and so I really do like Tyreek Hill this week because of that.
So you like Tyreek Hill, but my favorite play on the slate, which I mentioned, I don't like paying up for wide receivers because they're so volatile and I feel like there's a lot of value, but I like Devontae Adams a lot.
Don't say it. Nope. Joe Hayden, lock him up.
So is that who they're going to put on him? Because I was trying to find who he was going to be matched up against, and I was getting some differing answers, but I don't know.
Joe Hayden typically shadows the other team's best wide receiver.
Okay.
Typically. But
so
if that's not the case, you're getting a lot of Sutton. You're getting a lot of Pierre. You're
Pierre,
getting a lot of
that's
guys
who
you're not. Yeah.
that's who I was seeing him matched up against. And if that's the case, like that, which is who I thought it was coming in, I was just all on board Devontae Adams. He's just a monster, capable of getting 40 points, and Pittsburgh doesn't have the steel curtain anymore, so like a lot of Devontae Adams.
I think Pittsburgh's defense, and this will be very interesting, I think Pittsburgh's defense is going to look a lot better on Sunday. I mean, obviously, we didn't have our top two outside linebackers. Not only was TJ Watt out, but also Alex Highsmith was out as well. And so if we get either of those two back, we should be able to get a little bit of pressure. I mean, the last game was the first game in 75 regular season games that we did not record a sack. I think that changes. And then another reason why I think the Steelers defense actually can play pretty well, and again, this is all homer bias, is I do like our safeties. I like Minka. I like Terrell Edmonds, who had a pick last week, to be able to help and kind of shadow and cover. We've played a lot of cover too. That's what we did against the Bills with Stephon Diggs. I know Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams are two totally different beasts, but we were able to put Diggs kind of in check. I believe Diggs only had around 60 yards, but he hasn't looked very good all year anyway. Let me see. He had 69 yards, yeah. And so on 13 targets, so it wasn't like they barely tried to give him the ball. I mean, so I think the Steelers' defense has a formula. A lot of it does include getting to the pass rush. So it's a weird thing with a wide receiver where it's the opposite team's outside linebackers is going to make all the difference. But if you do have TJ Watt in there, if you do have Highsmith in there, then I'm actually going to be pretty okay with not having Devontae Adams in my lineups. But I could be 100% wrong on that, and that could be homer bias.
Well, you made a convincing case to come off of him, but I don't know. We'll see. He's just got such a high ceiling. But a couple other of these high-priced guys that I like. We talked about Calvin Ridley, but just for the sake of time, I'll skip over him. But right below him, a couple guys, Terry McLaurin against Atlanta, who gives up lots of points, and McLaurin's like the only wide receiver on that team. Curtis Samuel, I think, might come off the IR this week. Maybe not. I don't know. I know he's close to coming back, but McLaurin and Logan Thomas there against Atlanta. Adam Thielen seems to score a touchdown every single week. He seems cheap. And then another guy that because it reminds me, CeeDee Lamb's right there. So it reminds me that at $6,000, you have Amari Cooper, who had probably him and Tyreek Hill may have had tied for like the best receiver in week one. Nope, Cooper outed him by a point. Cooper was just a monster week one, and he has that capability. If that connection between Dak and Cooper, if it seems to go back and forth between him and CeeDee Lamb, who they consider their wide receiver one. So at $6,000, Cooper with a 40-point ceiling seems very, very cheap.
It does seem cheap. I will push back on one thing. I know week one against Tampa Bay, Zeke got like 2 carries, right, and like 5 touches. And so since then, we have seen a lot more Zeke. We've seen a lot more even Tony Pollard, who had 100 yards rushing in week 2. And we've kind of seen the wide receivers. I mean, you look and you go from 17 targets for Amari Cooper to 9 of the next 2 games. So that's the only reason why I think the price drop is justified, is because the targets aren't there anymore. And I think Carolina's defense, I mean, they're pretty solid. They have Burns and they have Chin and they have some good defense guys who can stop the run. So I definitely think this could be an area where Amari Cooper does shine, but it just scares me how much after week one the Cowboys have committed to go back to the run game.
Yeah, and I think that made sense. Obviously, Zeke is a beast, and they were playing Tampa, who was a great rushing defense, so it does make sense. But it just, after seeing the ceiling that he has, and just knowing that for the past several years he's had that ceiling at 6,000, I've liked them. But so going down a little bit of value, another 2 of my favorite value plays this week. One guy who we liked a lot week one, and you know me, I love some revenge games. Corey Davis facing Tennessee. Just at 5,000, he has the Tennessee's given up the second most yards per reception so far this season, and they still, the Jets that is, have 2 banged up receivers in Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore, both limited in practice, both questionable. if either one of them doesn't play, Corey Davis can see another 10 targets easily. And against Tennessee, who I just said they're giving up like 13 yards per reception. I think Corey Davis can do a lot of work with those targets. And then right below him, you had your little homer moment for the Steelers. So I'll say Jalen Waddle, double-digit targets at 4,900 last week. There you go. Yep, 13 targets. Only got 58 yards off of those. But Indy, I think the way to beat them is, Jacoby Brissett's way to beat them, I should say, is just to find Jalen Waddle in the slot. He's just been so safe. He's just continued to see more and more targets. The 2 fumbles don't look good on him, but I think he's just been so reliable for the Dolphins, and he's been rather impressive. I've been impressed by him. Just his consistency. Hasn't dropped very many balls. I don't think he's dropped any balls. So I think that's some really good value at 4,900 if you're trying to, fit in a couple high-priced wide receivers or running backs. You're going to need some salary relief, and for under $5,000, you're getting a guy who is likely to get another double-digit target game.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, so after my sneaky stacks video, I posted it on Reddit. BV Gingy commented that the Colts are down. Carey, Rock, Willis, and Pay didn't practice this week either. So he was actually saying that he liked Fuller this week because of all the injuries in the Colts secondary. But I really like Jalen Waddle here as well. I think there's a lot that you can do with the wide receivers on the Dolphins side because, like we said, this was supposed to be a close game. There's going to be a lot of points that are going to be meaningful that you're not just going to want to throw away. And so you're going to want to get it to some of your top guys. I mean, Will Fuller is coming in at 4.8K, which is $100 cheaper, but I don't think giving up all of those targets is worth the $100 if you try to get cute with it. I think you might as well. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting because in that game versus the Raiders, towards the end of the game, Brissett and in overtime, Brissett got very comfortable kind of trying to take chances on Fuller deep, which is what Fuller does best, right? He's one of the fastest receivers in the league, probably the fastest. I don't know, maybe Deshaun Jackson. If back in the days,
Tyreek Hill's pretty
Tyreek Hill's pretty quick. I'm just thinking who's those 99 speed guys in Madden. But we'll
DK Metcalf chase down Buda Baker.
That's true. So we've got some fast receivers, but Will Fuller's definitely up there. He's a big play threat. And if all those guys for the Colts in the secondary are going to be out, I think he's definitely there. I mean, I really like this game as a secondary game stack where you have your main stack with whoever you want to make it with, Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley. But then you kind of have a secondary game stack where you put in Will Fuller and Jonathan Taylor. In the case where that game shoots out, you'll get both of those guys at very low ownership. Taylor might have some ownership, but I think the Dolphins guys will get at very low ownership. And I think that game does have a potential to shoot out. So I think you could build a good secondary game stack around that game.
Yeah, for sure. One guy that I like that I think might be coming in very low owned and will be somebody who could potentially win you a lot of money this week, but could also win you $0 this week. Kadarius Toney. Gators in the pros, gotta love that. Only had 3 targets last week. Had
only though
2 targets.
That's the most targets he's had this season.
I know. Yeah. So we're looking at a guy who had 3.6 points, 1.8 points one week, 0 points another week, who is going to be filling in for Sterling Shepard in the slot. Even Darius Slayton also is going to be suffering a hamstring injury. It might not be full go. So you're really looking at a thin wide receiver room for the Giants. Mm-hmm. You even have Golladay, who's banged up. I think he's going to play too. I like Daniel Jones this week. I know a lot of people don't, but he's got to throw the ball somewhere. I'm sure you're probably going to see a lot of Saquon, even though in the passing game, even though the running game for New Orleans is pretty good on the defensive side, as well as the offensive side. Kamara's a beast. But I really do like Kadarius Toney this week. Am I crazy for that?
Yes. I don't know if it depends on who plays for the Giants, right? Obviously, if 2 of those 3 guys or all 3 of those 3 guys are out, then yeah, I love Kadarius Toney almost minimum priced, and those 3 targets would at least double if he's going to be the wide receiver 2 on the team. Chances of all 3 of them not playing are slim. Like you mentioned, I think Galladay is most likely going to play. It's more of Shepard and Slayton that we have to keep an eye on. So if Shepard and Slayton are both out, Tony's definitely playable because, being a Gator fan, watching him in college, he is such a threat when he has the ball in his hands. The problem is getting the ball in his hands because he's not a traditional wide receiver who can run good routes. He has improved on that, in his last year in college, but he's a guy that you throw a screen pass to and hope he does something with his legs. So he's a big play threat, but he won't get much volume. And I still think even if 2 of those guys are out, he still won't get a lot of volume. I mean, we're still probably looking at 5 targets. I'm more leaning like Evan Engram if 2 of those 3 guys are out, and I want a piece of the Giants.
So you're saying KJ Osborne is probably a better play than Kadarius Toney?
Yeah, KJ Osborne still being this cheap is obviously last week wasn't as good as week 1 and 2, but he's still the wide receiver 3 on this team that, even with Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the league, has a very big presence through the air, especially scoring wise. I mean, you see guys like Thielen who are only catching 3 or 4 balls a game, but those 3 or 4 balls are touchdowns. So I like Osborne more.
Yeah, and I think Osborne is definitely another spot that I like. I kind of set myself up for that, but because obviously we saw a rough game last week. Maybe that's why we didn't see the price jump up like we would have if he had a 3rd consecutive game in a row that was good. I don't think Minnesota's going to just run away with it like they did against Seattle last week, this week against the Browns. I also think the Browns have some pretty good defenders. You have Denzel Ward and quarterback spot. You have just a really strong defensive line, obviously Myles Garrett. So I think you're going to see a lot of getting the ball out to KJ Osborne, maybe to Thielen as well. I'm actually might fade Justin Jefferson this week, just because I think a lot of it's going to be in that short, quick game. But I really do like KJ Osborne this week to kind of have a bounce back game if you're going to go cheap as well.
Yeah, great. And just real quick before we move on to tight end, because I know we're kind of getting lengthy here, but Quez Watkins at 3,500 I've written down, and I talked about him a bit in my video. He's a big play threat. You'll see he had a 91-yard catch in week 2, I believe it was. Obviously, this game is going to be high scoring. At least that's what we expect. And the Chiefs have given up 5 plays of over 40 yards to opposing wide receivers. So it just if you want a guy that's like less than 2% owned in a high scoring game where he could, he might only catch 2 balls, but one of them might be a 50-yard touchdown. I think it's worth throwing a dart on Quez Watkins. I mean, he's definitely not safe. I wouldn't put him in your cash or anything. But if you're MMEing a contest, I don't think it's bad to have a couple pieces of Quez Watkins.
Yeah, I like that play too.
All right, on to tight ends. Let's just do tight ends and defense and quickly run through these. Who is your standout tight end this week?
My standout tight end this week, one, I know we talked about Pitts a lot, and Logan Thomas as well. But there is one guy who, he's my standalone tight end. I think he's going to be really good, and I think we're going to talk about on next week's episode how stupid I am, but I'm excited about it. And that is, I'm scrolling, man.
It's a
scroll.
really scrolling.
Here we go. Where is it? You know what? I'm just going to type in his name.
Tommy Tremble.
I love me some Tommy Tremble, dude. One target makes me excited. One rush for the touchdown gets me fired up. Dan Arnold not being the tight end anymore. He's gone. He's now in Jacksonville. I think Tommy Tremble could have a fantastic game. Going against Dallas, we saw that Ertz and Goddard had monster games last week against that defense. I think, man, it's just Tommy Tremble. He's going to be my main tight end, and I'm probably going to have the most usage of. I think I'm nuts for it, but I really like him this week with Dan Arnold out of the picture.
So let me ask you this, because I was reading some articles. I was browsing Reddit. Seems like a lot of guys like Tremble. So and that obviously he's not going to be owned as high as a guy like Kelsey or Hawkinson. But if he does, like, we're checking Sunday, making our lineups, and we look at the ownership projections, and he's projected like 5 to 10%. Is he still a guy that you go to? Is he like a cash play only? What do you think about?
Yeah, I think 5 or 10% I'm okay with. I think maybe once it gets into that 10 and 20%, then maybe we stay away and we go with something like a Pitts or a Logan Thomas, maybe whichever one of those two are lesser owned. Maybe we even go. Noah Fant has been pretty disappointing this year so far.
He's my favorite play of the slate.
But I think he could have a bounce back game. So yeah, I think if we get into the 10 and 20% on Tommy Tremble, I might kind of shy away from it. I'll still have a lot of them, but maybe not as much. But then I'd go with Pitts, Thomas, or Fant probably. I'd say maybe in reverse order, where I go Fant, Thomas, Pitts as far as who I prefer.
Yeah, Fant's, like I said, my favorite tight end of the slate. 4,300 is a good price for him, right in that kind of like middle to low range of tight ends that I like to play. And the Ravens are allowing 7.3 receptions to tight ends a game through 3 weeks, most in the league. He's been on the field for 90% of snaps basically last week, and I think he's around 80% for the first 2 weeks. So he's always on the field. Obviously, we know the Broncos are down Judy, but now they're down KJ Hamler. Down two receivers.
I love Hamler too. That hurt.
Yeah, I'm sorry to see that happen. But down two receivers, good matchup. $4,300. Really like Fant.
Okay, you want to jump over to the defense?
Yep, let's hit defense real quick and then try to build us a lineup.
Okay.
So the obvious play for me, and I think it's too obvious, so I might not have them as much, is the Lions against the Bears. Because we saw how bad that was, the Bears is last week, and for only 2,200. It seems like the obvious play. I'm not saying the Lions defense is great, but I'm saying if the Bears somehow improve their offensive line and only give up 4 sacks, that's still a lot of points for the Lions defense. So I think that's a very safe play. Definitely going to be my cash game play 100%. Not even going to look at anyone else in cash. GPP is where I'm going to start looking elsewhere because I think they'll carry some ownership. Even though I talked about liking the Colts-Dolphins game, I think those are two good defenses, and I kind of like both of the defenses. The Dolphins are at 3,200. Colts are at 27. I think both teams are capable of turning the ball over, and this game should be relatively low scoring. So I think both of those defenses are good if you're going mid-range. And then obviously up top, Bills against Houston. I don't like paying over $4,000 for a defense, but if you have that kind of money to spare, go for it. If you're not, if those two guys, Slayton and Shepard, are out for the Giants, I think we consider New Orleans. I think they can shut down Barkley, and then not much else to throw to. I don't think Kadarius Toney's going to have a big game like Scotty does. So, what do you think?
Just wait. Now, I think all those picks are solid. I think I'll also throw the Packers in there. We made the Bengals look good on defense, and I mean, if you see some of the throws that Ben Roethlisberger's making, they are just asking to be picked off and to be taken for 6 too. Yeah, I think the Packers is another team that I just have to unfortunately throw into my defensive pool because of just how bad Pittsburgh and their offensive line has been playing recently.
All right. Shall we try our hands at redeeming ourselves from that awful Week 3 lineup and try to build a better Week 4 lineup?
Let's run it, man. We got it.
So quarterback. I know you didn't really like paying up. I agree. Don't think we need to pay up this week. Not a big fan of Daniel Jones, especially if their receivers are banged up. Who do you like plugging in there at QB?
I think we both kind of like Jalen Hurts, and I'm okay with that.
That was my main. Before we even started making our lineup, I was like had Jalen Hurts stats up. That's the guy who I really like this week. Definitely for cash, and our lineups normally go for cash and GPP. We try to kind of make a hybrid one, but we'll update. If you follow us on Twitter at HandsDownDFS, if we make any changes to this lineup, and ownership comes out and we see Jalen Hurts is going to be 30% owned, we'll probably pivot. So just follow us on Twitter, and we'll make sure to tweet out the updated lineup. But for now, definitely like Hurts. Over to running backs. Anybody that you really want to lock in?
I really want to lock in Swift, but I feel like with Hurts, how chalky he might already be, I feel like we're just asking to build a cash lineup at this point. If we do Hurts and Swift, so I mean, I want to lock him in. Maybe we can lock him in and then say that we'll do the different lineup come Sunday once we see ownership. But
I don't mind that. I think a play, like you said, Swift is going to be chalky. I think a pivot off that is a guy that you like, and I also kind of agree because you mentioned he has the 4th most rushing yards. I think last year he finished the season with like the 6th or 7th most rushing yards. But David Montgomery, 5,800, I think is going to be. Still will have some ownership, but I don't think it's going to be as high as Swift. I don't mind him in the lineup, and I think that is, pretty good value.
Yeah, no, I like him as well. Do we want to go back to the Clyde Edwards-Helaire or do we want to kind of pay up for our second running back?
I kind of want to pay up. I don't know who your favorite pay up spot is. I really like Nick Chubb. He's probably one of my favorite running backs on the slate. Harris, like we mentioned, will be getting the receptions. Jonathan Taylor is not really a pay up, but at 6,300, those are the 3 guys I have my eyes on. But I don't know who you're thinking.
How about let's do this, because I think I prefer Harris over Chubb. I think you prefer Chubb over Harris. Let's do our wide receivers and see where we end up cash wise, and then we'll go from there.
It's good for me.
So do we want to throw? We didn't really talk about Devontae Smith or any of the wide receivers for the Eagles. Do we want to stack here, or do we want to maybe throw Tyreek Hill in there as a bring it back? What do we want to do?
I think the smart play is to stack, but I also would love to bring it back. We could do that with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We could do that with Tyreek Hill. We could do that with Kelsey. But what are the Philly wide receivers at price wise?
Let me.
So,
too bad at all.
Yeah, Smith.
I know you like Quez.
Quez is definitely a big play guy. If you're, I don't know. I'm not stacking him with Hurts. He's more of my one-off guy. That scares me. That scares me.
Okay, we can leave him out.
Between Rager and Smith, I'd much rather go one of those 2 guys.
I definitely prefer Smith. I think Smith had a tough matchup with Diggs last week. For the Cowboys, I think he definitely sees a better time this week. We can also talk about Dallas Goedert, who had a pretty solid game last week, but I think Smith or Goddard would be who we stack here.
Yeah, I prefer Smith. I was looking at some injury reports. Kansas City also has 2 banged up members in their secondary. So I think, and just looking at the lineup of who they're going to line up against, they have Devon Smith on Charvarius Ward, who was one of the 2 guys that's banged up, limited in practice. So I think Devontae Smith could have a big game. And then the question is figuring out if we want to earn it back, and if so, with who.
Man, I really like Tyreek Hill this week, but he's so expensive.
We can plug him in. We can find value. We talked about a couple guys at 3,500 that we like for wide receiver. Obviously, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is cheap. Defense, we have the easy punt option in the Lions. You like Tommy Tremble, so I think we can fit this.
Let's do it. Let's throw the Lions in there, see what we're working with. And then, do we want to do one of the punt wide receivers, or do we want to go with Tommy Tremble?
Man, let's do Tommy Tremble. I'm gonna trust you here.
Let's go.
I do agree. I think he's going to see more. Obviously he'll see more work now that who got traded to Jacksonville. Why can't I remember?
Dan Arnold.
Yeah, there you go, Arnold.
We no longer have Sam Darnold and Dan Arnold.
That's great to hear. So that leaves us some pretty good room. Wide receiver, last spot for wide receiver. Who do you like, kind of in that middle range?
Yeah, I think somebody who we saw who could have a big game this week as we were looking at it. I like Galladay because I like Daniel Jones. I know you don't necessarily, but we also have Robert Woods.
Oh, gosh.
Is this the week we do it?
Is this the week we do Robert Woods, or is it going to come back to bite us? I mean, I just think he's due, right? And I know he's due is just a terrible argument, and that's how you lose a lot of money in daily fantasy. But he's due.
So do you want me to give you a better option?
Jalen Waddle. We've got both
Yeah,
Jalen Waddle and Corey Davis. I mean, I think those are two guys who should see some volume.
So you want to do those two, or at least one?
Just
of them?
one of those two. Waddle's the cheaper option. We can go there,
Let's go Waddle.
and that gives us a lot of room to work with.
So we got 7,000 per player. I think we do Miles Gaskins, obviously. Just kidding. Do we go kind of a studs and duds lineup where we throw Tyreek Hill and Derrick Henry in the same lineup, or do we do Nick Chubb, who's at 7,000, and then another 7,000 probably wide receiver?
So Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry would be 80. What was he at? 8,800. That would leave us, 5,200 left? Yeah.
Yeah. Or we could do Nick Chubb and at 5,900, or not 5,900, 6,900 is Terry McLaurin.
I don't mind that. I think that those are two. Yeah, I like Chubb a lot. I think he's going to have a great week. 7,000. We got Ridley, McLaurin, Thielen, three guys that I said I liked.
Do you want to go McLaurin?
I'm good with McLaurin. I think that Atlanta defense is just poor, so I'm good.
Well, there you go.
Smash that $333 entry, and let's run it up.
Call it a day.
Thank you guys for watching. Again, follow us at Hands Down at DFS on Twitter, and we'll make sure to tweet out this lineup. We'll discuss it, make any changes, and if we do, we will make sure to post it. But please hit that like button and subscribe to check out the rest of our DFS content. And Scotty, any closing thoughts?
Nope, that's it. I mean, excited about this weekend. We'll have some prize picks out for you. I'll try to do each kind of slate. So we'll do a 1 o'clock prize picks, 4:30 prize picks, and then the Sunday night game. I'll try to get that out as well. So we should have 3 different sets of either 2 or 3 plays that I really like, and we'll have that out for you. We'll try to do an hour before kickoff on each of those.
All right. Well, thank you guys for staying with us and tuning in. Like Scotty said, make sure to stay tuned for all our content coming out, and we'll catch you guys then.